For more than 32 years, Patrick Dearth's disappearance remained without a public answer. He vanished from Fairbanks, Alaska in November of 1993. There was no confirmed location, no known recovery, and no explanation for what had happened to him. Then, in January of 2025, Alaska State Troopers received an anonymous tip. The person behind that tape claimed to have committed a murder in the Fairbanks area more than 3 decades earlier. The tip included a location beside the remote Alaska Highway. But when investigators finally searched that area, they did not just find evidence. They found human remains. Those remains were later identified as Patrick Dearth. And according to investigators, the anonymous tipster was Christopher Pops, the man now charged with Patrick's murder. This is the story of a 32-year disappearance, a barrel beside an isolated highway, and an anonymous message that police say led them back to the person who sent it. Before we continue, an important legal reminder. Christopher Pops has been indicted on 2 counts of second-degree murder. He is accused, not convicted. The allegations against him have not yet been proven in court, and he must be presumed innocent unless and until a court finds him guilty. This video is based on publicly available police statements and new reports. Its purpose is documentary, educational, and informational. Patrick Dearth was 34 years old when he disappeared. He lived in Fairbanks, a city in Alaska's interior, surrounded by huge areas of forest, mountains, and isolated roads. According to investigators, Patrick had worked with Christopher Pops in Fairbanks, but very little personal information about Patrick has been released publicly. There are no detailed public accounts describing his everyday routine, his relationship, or what he was planning to do before he disappeared. What authorities have confirmed is that Patrick was last seen on the 22nd of November 1993. His family reported him missing to the Fairbanks Police Department. At that point, the people who cared about Patrick had no way of knowing that the search for answers would continue for more than 3 decades. A missing person investigation can become extremely difficult when there is no confirmed crime scene. Investigators need somewhere to begin: a vehicle, a witness, a telephone record, a location connected to the final hours. But in Patrick's case, the most important location would remain unknown for 31 years. Public reports do not explain every step taken during the original investigation. They do not tell us which witnesses were interviewed in 1993, what searches were conducted, or who investigators consider important at the time. That means it would be irresponsible to invent a detailed theory about what police know during those early years. What is clear is that Patrick did not return. The years passed. 1993 became 1994. Then another year passed, and another. People moved away. Memories become less clear. Physical evidence become harder to locate. Witnesses who may once have remembered small details could forget them or become impossible to find. But Patrick's missing person case did not disappear completely. Then, on the 22nd of January 2025, Alaska State Troopers received an anonymous tip. According to the troopers, the person sending the information said that he had murdered someone in the Fairbanks area in the 1993. This is not simply a vague message about an old crime. The tip reportedly directed investigators toward an area near mile 47 of the Steese Highway. The Steese Highway travels north from Fairbanks through a wide and often remote landscape. Mile 47 is in the Chantanica area, far from the crowded streets of major city. According to Alaska public media, the tip indicated that the missing person's remains had been placed inside a barrel near the highway, but investigators could not immediately perform a full search. The tip arrived in January. In Alaska, January means deep winter condition. The location was covered by snow, and daylight was limited. Searching a step embankment in those conditions would have been difficult and potentially dangerous. Authorities therefore waited until the condition improved. This delay was not because investigators ignored the information. It was because the ground and the light made the careful search difficult. In May of 2025, troopers and investigators from the Alaska Bureau of Investigation traveled to the area identified in the tip. More specifically, Alaska's news source reported that the search took place on the 8th of May. Investigators searched near mile 47 of the Steese Highway. Down a step embankment, they located a barrel. Inside it were human remains. After more than 31 years, investigators finally had something that Patrick's case had been missing since the beginning: a confirmed recovery location. The remains were taken to the Alaska State Medical Examiner's office. Medical examiners then worked to determine the person's identity and the circumstances of the death. The remains were identified as Patrick Orville Dearth. The medical examiner also determined that Patrick's death was a homicide. For Patrick's family, this discovery brought an answer, but not the answer anyone would want. For decades, Patrick had officially been missing. Now his family knew that he had died. But finding Patrick was only one part of the investigation. Police still need to determine who had sent the information, how that person knew the location, and what evidence connected anyone to Patrick's death. According to Alaska State Troopers spokesperson Austin McDaniel, investigators learned that the January message was not the only anonymous tip connected to the case. McDaniel told Alaska public media that Christopher Pops had apparently sent multiple anonymous tips to different law enforcement agencies in Alaska. According to police, those messages claimed responsibility for Patrick's death. Investigators have not publicly explained every method they use to identify the person behind the tips. They have not released a full technical description showing how the communications were traced. They have also not said why the sender allegedly began providing information after more than 30 years. That unanswered question is one of the most unusual parts of this case. Why would someone allegedly connected to a decade-old death suddenly begin sending information to police? Was the person trying to confess? Was he trying to control how investigators discovered the case? Was there another reason? At this stage, there is no verified public answer. Any explanation would be speculation. What investigators have said is that the anonymous tipster was identified as Christopher Pops, a 54-year-old man living in Michigan. Authorities also said that Pops and Patrick had previously worked together in Fairbanks. According to the police account reported by Alaska public media, investigators believe there was an interaction at an auto shop. Police allege that this confrontation ended with Pops shooting Patrick. That account is an allegation. It has not been established by a trial, and the complete evidence supporting it has not yet been made public. We also do not know the alleged cause of the confrontation. No verified motive has been publicly established. Police have not released a complete reconstruction of Patrick's final day. They have not publicly explained whether the alleged incident was witnessed by another person, and they have not disclosed all the evidence they believe connected Pops to the event of November 1993. After Patrick's remains were recovered, investigators faced another major challenge. They had to investigate an event that had taken place more than 3 decades earlier. According to Alaska public media, that process included locating and speaking with witnesses from the time of Patrick's disappearance. Imagine trying to reconstruct a normal day from 32 years ago. Where were you? Who was standing nearby? What time did someone arrive? What words were spoken? Which vehicle was parked outside? Even honest witnesses can struggle to remember those details after such a long period. Investigators would also need to separate real memories from information people learned later. That work took time. The remains were recovered in May of 2025. The indictment did not arrive until June of 2026. On the 25th of June 2026, a Fairbanks grand jury indicted Christopher Pops on 2 counts of second-degree murder in connection with Patrick Dearth's death. A warrant for his arrest was issued that same day. A grand jury indictment does not mean that a person has been found guilty. It means prosecutors presented evidence and the grand jury found sufficient ground for the criminal case to proceed. The defense has not yet had the opportunity to test all the state's evidence before a trial jury. Several weeks after the indictment, the case moved more than 3,000 miles away from Alaska. On the 16th of July 2026, Michigan State Police arrested Pops near Kalamazoo, Michigan. He was taken to the Kalamazoo County Jail. According to the latest authoritative reports available when this script was prepared, he was being held pending extradition to Alaska. Extradition is the legal process used to transfer an accused person from the state where they were arrested to the state where the charges were filed. Once Pops is returned to Alaska, the criminal proceeding can continue there. At the time of Alaska public media initial reports, no attorney was listed for Pops in the Alaska court record, and no future Alaska hearing had been scheduled. That information can change quickly. A lawyer could enter the case, a hearing could be scheduled, Pops could enter a plea, prosecutors could release additional information. For that reason, none of those future developments should be predicted. The case has now reached an important point, but it is not finished. The indictment and arrest have answered one question. Authorities have publicly identified the person they accused of Patrick's murder, but many other questions remain. What evidence beyond the alleged anonymous tip will prosecutors present? How exactly did the investigator connect the communication to Pops? Did physical evidence survive after more than 30 years? What did witnesses tell investigators? What happened during the alleged confrontation at the auto shop? Why did anonymous information begin arriving in 2025? And what position will the defense take when the case reaches an Alaska courtroom?